Right now, the U.S. is reckoning with the current state of suicide. We've witnessed a record high spike in suicide deaths last year, with over 49,000 people reported as dying by suicide in 2022. That's an increase of nearly 3% from 2021, and any increase is too much. As the country tries to address this aspect of an ongoing mental health crisis, many people worry about increasing suicide rates and how they can prevent more tragedies. Hello, I'm Stephanie Haney, and as September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, in this edition of In the News Now, we're looking into efforts to bring awareness to this leading cause of death, as well as inspire people to get involved in their communities and save lives. A common concern for many people is being able to recognize the warning signs for worsening mental health, and also how to help people who are experiencing suicidal thoughts. Asking someone, "Are you okay?" is an easy question to start with, and you'll never know how someone feels unless you ask. Here are a few things you could do that could make a big difference.
More than 700,000 suicides are reported annually worldwide, according to the HWO.
And for the Corpus Christi community, we want everyone to know that suicide is preventable.
There are signs that you can look out for. First, talk about it. A person may express wanting to die, talk about great guilt or shame, or feel like a burden. Extreme sadness, anxiousness, or rage are also warning signs. Also, look out for a change in behavior, such as extreme mood swings or changes in eating and sleeping. Angela Horner with NAMI says that volunteers are trained to ask the right questions.
If you just know the warning signs, we want to encourage people to ask the question, are you thinking about killing yourself? It's hard to say at first. We practice it, and when it comes down to saving a loved one, we can't be afraid to talk about it.
Studies from the National Institute of Mental Health show that asking at-risk individuals if they are suicidal does not increase suicides or suicidal thoughts. You can also keep at-risk people safe by removing lethal items or limiting access to places that one could kill themselves. A lot of attention this past year has been on the number 988.
The 988 Suicide Lifeline is not only for someone who is having suicidal ideation. Family members of someone can reach out, and the people on the line can talk you through how to talk to your loved one to get them help.
Be sure to keep in touch after a crisis. Studies show the number of suicide deaths does go down when someone follows up with that at-risk person.
Research has shown that it takes people an average of hearing about something 7 times before they actually take action on it. And so the more we talk about it, it reduces the stigma and it encourages people to reach out for help.
Suicide is one of the leading causes of death for young people. In 2021, it was the second leading cause of death for people between the ages of 10 and 14. Unfortunately, too many kids don't have access to mental health care outside of school. And in school, counseling is lacking, with mental health professionals in schools understaffed. In Tennessee, Caitlin Keenahan talked to mental health experts about new efforts underway to bring more mental health resources to schools.
The start of the school year is right around the corner, and for some, that means a conversation around mental health.
1 in 5 children are going to experience some type of mental health challenge.
Shannon Dow with the McNabb Center says that counselors are in schools, but we need more.
I really think that that's important, that we are focusing and valuing children's mental health, because I think unfortunately sometimes we don't look at that until it becomes a problem.
In recent years, it's become a problem. Logs from the 988 suicide prevention line show more and more students are using the hotline at school.
We actually sometimes get text from school. Someone will be in between classes.
Amanda Collins is a former school psychologist for Knox County. She's also a mom who knows what it takes.
Is that the more involved you are, the more aware you are of what's going on with your kid, the better advocate you can be for your kid.
Do you think there is an adequate supply of mental health resources in school, or should there be more?
There absolutely should be more.
Each secondary school in Knox County does have at least one school counselor, thanks to federal funding that was approved early this year. But McNabb Center says that's just the start. In Knoxville, Caitlin Keenahan.
The transition between grades, schools, and social dynamics can be more difficult for some than for others. So with the start of a new school year right here upon us, it's more important than ever to talk to your children about how they're feeling. Again, in Tennessee, WBIR listens as a teen opens up about her struggle with suicidal thoughts. We do want to warn you, this story might be hard to listen to, especially if you're dealing with your own thoughts of self-harm, but we do hope that you find it helpful.
At 11 years old,
it was a really hopeless time for me. I wasn't there.
Ariane Witt spent a lot of time by herself.
The loss of friends was it's very sudden. It happened a lot.
Feeling isolated and alone.
It just drove me to that edge.
She made a drastic decision to end her pain.
It ended up just taking over me, and my initial plan was to hang myself. That was the plan.
But fear stopped her in her tracks, and she never told anyone until a routine physical exam.
They gave me a form, and on the form it had questions about depression. I marked them 10 all the time, thoughts like that.
Her doctor quickly referred her to a therapist.
I honestly thought that she was just going through typical stuff that kids go through at her age.
Who revealed Ariane's plans to her devastated mother.
But at the end of the session, he called me in. And he said, "You need to know that this is what your daughter's planning." And she wrote out the letter. She planned it. And that was my moment.
A 2022 report in Knox County finds nearly half of female students said they feel sad or hopeless. 28% of male students reported feeling the same. 9% of those surveyed said they attempted suicide within the previous year.
Anxiety is probably the most prevalent thing I see come into my office, especially among young girls.
Amanda Tunnell left teaching after years in the classroom to become a social emotional learning coach. The alternative therapy equips tweens and teens like Ariane with the tools to handle life's big transitions.
Remember to feel your shoulders relax away from your body.
This gives them a space and a place to normalize what they're going through and normalize the feelings that they're having, and then develop healthy and effective ways to manage the distress.
After a year of working with Amanda, Ariane is trying new hobbies, learning how to communicate with her peers and navigate conflicts.
Because of that, her self-esteem has skyrocketed because of that. What she couldn't do before, she can do now.
She and her mother want others to know asking for help could save a life.
I feel like I'm standing on my own 2 feet. I can see now why I chose to live.
And if you or someone you know is struggling with mental health issues, there is help. Just dial or text the number you see right here on your screen, 988.
Now let's look at another vulnerable population, veterans. According to the Department of Veteran Affairs, an average of 16 to 17 veterans died from suicide every day in 2020. Recently, hundreds of people took to the streets in Knoxville to bring awareness to the suicide rate among veterans. Reporter Krissa Lucas shows us how camaraderie and understanding can bring vets out of isolation.
When veterans come home from something traumatic, Irreverent Warriors coordinator Christine Shawhan says they tend to isolate themselves.
Isolation is really what is the killer, and they get inside their own head and they feel like they're alone and that no one's going to understand them.
She says many veterans look forward to this hike.
When we bring our veterans together like this, we're able to break down those walls.
Hiking boots march around town in solidarity.
We show each other love, we show each other grace.
Empowerment leads the way, and a veteran explains why.
You're taught to be tough. You know, you're taught to fight, and you're taught to kill. You don't talk about your feelings. You just don't do that.
Last year they had about 139 hikers. This year they grew to more than 200. Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs says spreading awareness matters.
Anything that we can do, again, to try to diminish that stigma, I think is really important.
In memory of veterans who are gone.
I think it's important to remember what they did and what they sacrificed so that we can have freedom.
If you're a veteran watching, this is your message.
Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We love you. You are needed. Tomorrow needs you, so just please wait.
Lawmakers in Virginia are trying to do their part to prioritize veterans' mental health, proposing several new bills this summer to address the subject, including funding research into psychedelic drugs to address post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Mike Gooding has been following the developing legislation, so here's more on what it could do to help veterans.
More than 6,100 veterans died by suicide, according to the most recent Department of Veterans Affairs report. That's the lowest it's been since 2006. Still, veterans advocacy groups have said repeatedly that one veteran suicide is one too many.
This is a complex problem that needs a multifaceted solution. We as a society need to do better.
The House Veterans Affairs Committee this week is working its way through dozens of proposed bills. One of them, the Psychedelic Therapies to Save Lives Act of 2023, would create a $75 million grant program to support research into therapeutic treatment for PTSD.
Those who risk their lives in defense of our country deserve positive and fulfilling lives, and the federal government has the responsibility to assist them in their endeavor.
Another group of veterans who need help is military firefighters. The VA does not grant automatic presumption of service-connected disability to military firefighter veterans suffering from a variety of cancers and does not cover treatment costs. Virginia Representative Abigail Spanberger's Michael Lesick Military Firefighters Protection Act would change that.
Our bill would finally recognize the connection between the occupational hazards military firefighters face and these deadly diseases.
Mike Gooding, 13 News Now.
In Pennsylvania, lawmakers want to put up signs in state parks to spread information about mental health resources. Matt Kleindens talked with a mental health expert about how this seemingly simple move could lead to less suicide.
The gentle breeze and sounds of nature make Pennsylvania's state parks a peaceful place for many families. Tragically, they've also become a destination for people who have died from suicide.
That isolation and that privacy are two of the big factors.
According to the state's Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, 164 people have died by suicide in state parks since 2010. Dr. Melissa Brown with UPMC says the quiet trails of state parks can be the scene of a tragedy for people struggling through a mental health crisis.
Some places don't have as much foot traffic as other places, so it does provide that unfortunate space where someone can commit suicide without anybody being aware or around.
In an effort to address the issue, state lawmakers are working to advertise mental health resources and the 988 suicide prevention hotline in every state park. Republican Representative Kristen Marcel, who introduced the bill, says it's a way to spread information to people who need help.
Wherever we can meet them and help them to learn about a resource that's available, I think we should definitely ensure that they have that information.
The information would be placed around trails where there's been a history of suicide attempts. Dr. Brown says having information on resources out in the open can help destigmatize mental health issues.
That certainly makes it more part of our regular communication and our conversations with each other. And it encourages us to check in with each other.
Representative Marcel says even a small step like this can be enough to save lives.
It's definitely worth doing it if it will result in someone choosing not to end their life.
Matt Kleindens, Fox 43 News.
According to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, over half of all deaths from suicide involve a gun. A family in Maine had their lives devastated by this form of suicide. The family now seeks change, hoping to prevent others from experiencing the same loss that they did. Chloe Tebow brings us their story.
Bruce Ames from Bassboro.
This is something Bruce Ames never imagined he would be doing.
We need you to pass laws to protect the people because they don't know how to protect themselves.
Testifying in Augusta in favor of stricter gun safety measures. Bruce is a registered Republican, a Navy veteran, and a lifelong hunter.
He always had a smile on his face. He was always into mischief.
Bruce is also a father, and for he and his wife Bambi, what they've been through is hard to talk about.
The devastation, I mean, it's ripped our family apart. I mean, there's a huge hole that will never be filled.
While living in Wisconsin back in 2020, Bambi and Bruce lost their youngest son, Ryan, to suicide by gun.
We heard kind of a noise and another crash. I went running upstairs and, see him on the floor. and with a gun beside him. And I knew instantly he had to have gotten it from work.
That turned out to be true. 16-year-old Ryan had access to the storage room at the sporting goods store where he worked. According to a lawsuit that Ames has filed, the guns in that storage room were not secured, and Ryan took one. Bambi and Bruce say it was crushing. They had worked so hard to prioritize gun safety in their own home.
All I have is hunting guns and a couple handguns for house protection. I took all the ammo and took it off site, so there was no ammo. And then we put a combination deadbolt on our door.
A deadbolt and other measures put into place because Ryan had been struggling with his mental health for a few years.
He didn't want to take his life, but he couldn't see living the way he felt for the rest of his life.
He told us one day, he said, I know I have a good life. I have good friends. We do things as a family. He has no reason to want to kill himself, but he said, I just don't want to be here.
Ryan isn't alone. The U.S. CDC reports more than 48,000 people died by suicide in the United States in 2021. That comes out to one death every 11 minutes. During this newscast alone, 2 more Americans will end their lives.
I believe deeply that suicide is mostly a preventable tragedy.
Greg Marley is the clinical director of the National Alliance on Mental Health in Maine. He says suicide attempts among teenagers are often impulsive, and adolescent, young adult males die by suicide at a rate that's 6 to 8 times higher than young females, primarily because of the methods they choose.
Have you heard from people who have attempted suicide and lived, who have talked about being happy that that was the outcome?
I have talked to so many people who've lived and said, I am so glad I made it through that dark time.
And what does that say about our society, that we value our guns more than we do our young people?
This legislative session, Representative Margaret Craven, a Democrat from Lewiston, sponsored LD 60, an act to require a 72-hour waiting period after the sale of a firearm.
We have to wait for many, many things in our life. And, if you're buying a house, you have to wait.
Craven says she brought a similar bill forward in 2007 after her neighbor lost a teenage son to suicide. In 2007 and this year, in 2023, the bills did not pass.
We need to keep this front and center to make sure that their families knows that we haven't forgotten about it, and it's not just prayers and thoughts,
Too many people die.
That's what members of the Maine Gun Safety Coalition are trying to do. Board Chair Camilla Shannon of Yarmouth says she wants to see change.
But I think we do have a sort of a lagging cultural concern that is getting in the way of some legislators standing up for these bills.
Shannon says a new poll by Pan Atlantic Research indicates 72% of Mainers support a 72-hour waiting period. That same number also supports universal background checks. Shannon says she doesn't see gun safety as a blue versus red issue.
And the hunters I know, the hunters I work with for gun safety are some of the people most interested and most committed to keeping their guns safe because they recognize the power of the weapons. I think the polarizing nature of it unfortunately has a lot to do with the extreme gun lobby.
News Center Maine reached out to the gun lobby, the Maine chapter of the National Rifle Association, for an interview for this story. NRA State Director Justin Davis did not agree to an interview on camera, but he did send statements to a few of our questions. One says, suicides by any form are tragic events, often triggered by a crisis. We need to invest more in mental health and provide resources to ensure that those in desperate need have an avenue that they can reach out to in their time of need.
This board was his early years.
Since losing Ryan, Bambi and Bruce Ames have found support through the Gabby Giffords group working to end gun violence. They know they can't change the fact Ryan is gone, and they know a waiting period would not have saved his life, but they hope new gun legislation could help another family.
I think the majority of people want change, but the minority is loud.
In California, San Diego officials are looking into more effective ways to prevent suicide, including by using tools like suicide safety plans. Ariana Cohen connected with mental health experts from the area who swear by them, saying these plans are responsible for a drop in suicide rates in the city.
Sadly, many of us have known someone who has lost their life to suicide. 1.2 million people attempted suicide in 2020, according to the American Federation of Suicide Prevention. Now, there is a method experts claim that reduces the likelihood of someone taking their own life.
DJ and dancer Stephen Twitch Boss, Miss USA Chesley Christ, and Robin Williams are people many remember for their positive light who lost their lives to suicide. Their deaths are one of the reasons mental health has come to the forefront nationally and locally. Jan Gloucester lives in San Diego. He was shocked when his godbrother took his own life.
We definitely didn't see any of this coming, and I think that is what is so obscene and rare of suicide, is that it's always the person you least expected.
From 2012 through 2021, suicide rates have increased nationally by 12%. However, AFSP shows suicide rates have actually decreased in San Diego by 15%. The decrease is attributed to suicide prevention safety plans, according to local suicide prevention experts.
We've seen here locally reductions that we've never seen before. It shows and it's proven that it definitely works. Having a plan really definitely has shown to reduce the rates of suicide.
It is an incredibly researched tool. This is something that mental health knows works.
The method was originally created by Columbia University's Director of Suicide Prevention Training, Barbara Stanley. According to Stanley's findings, all studies that used a suicide safety plan had a 43% reduction in suicidal behavior. So, how does it work? The safety plan is a 6-step process that includes ways for patients to cope, distract themselves, and reach out for support. The first step is warning signs. List thoughts or moods or behaviors that lead to suicidal thoughts. Step 2, internal coping strategies. Ask yourself, what can you do on your own to not act on your thoughts? Step 3, social contacts who may distract from the crisis. List off several people who can help take your mind off your problems. Step 4, family members or friends who may offer help. Have a backup plan of more people who can support you and make you feel better.
You prevent suicides by giving people hope and giving people connections.
Step 5, professionals and agencies to contact for help. List names and numbers of urgent care services. And finally, Step 6, make the environment safe. Make sure firearms, weapons, and medications are stored in a faraway safe place during a crisis.
I think mental health is a topic that I don't think I've ever heard more on the news and in the media since I've become a therapist. And the fact that I'm even talking to you about this is so drastically different than 10 years ago.
She says you can change the plan at any time to personalize it specifically to your needs. Gloucester wishes he knew about this plan sooner.
I was not equipped with the proper resources and information to help, potentially see the warning signs with my godbrother. I think a safety plan's integral in suicide prevention because it will equip not only myself but other people with the proper resources to hopefully prevent and hone in on a potential suicide or stop a potential suicide from happening.
And he has a message to those who are having dark thoughts.
Know that you're not alone and there's always someone who's willing to help you and talk you through it, and that you being present and alive is better than you being gone.
You can also download the Stanley Brown Safety Plan on your cell phone for free to easily access it at your fingertips. If you or someone you know is in a suicidal crisis, you can call 988. Ariana Cohen, CBS 8.
The 988 National Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Crisis Hotline has been active for 1 year now. In that short time, it's already made a big impact, taking over 20 million calls and receiving hundreds of thousands of text messages. Colleen Sikora reflects on the hotline's success in Arizona and learns what's needed to help even more people there.
200 crisis agents. It's hard answering calls from Arizonans on average in 9 seconds. Cassie Villegas is the Senior Director of Contact Center Operations and Clinical Services at Solari, the state's primary vendor for the 988 hotline.
We're seeing a lot of folks that it's their first time accessing crisis services.
On average, there are about 5,000 calls a month coming into the 988 line, according to Solari, most commonly for suicidal or self-harm thoughts, anxiety, and social concerns.
It is hard. It is hard on a lot of Arizonans to really be able to be comfortable in their own skin, to really be able to cope with so many stressors.
Justin Chase is Solari's president and CEO. He's seen a 45% increase in call volume as the state switched over from the 10-digit National Suicide Prevention Lifeline to the 988 line. To see a 45% increase, what does that tell you about mental health in Arizona?
What it really shows is that mental health is not we aren't meeting and reaching everyone that we should be.
Nationally, a poll done this summer by the National Alliance on Mental Illness found 4 out of 5 Americans aren't familiar with 988.
What we really need to see is increased awareness, knowledge, conversations around 988 and its accessibility. We look for a marketing campaign at the state level, from a national level, and a local level.
Chase expecting call volume to increase again this year by as much as 25%, but says an investment in 988 would help.
Funding towards 988 would be vital and critical. We're relying right now on grants and relying on federal supports, but really having that local and state level funding stream to really be able to create sustainability.
Knowing the importance of having the system in place.
Mental health, suicide, substance use deserve the same level of treatment and accessibility as any other critical emergency service. And so 988 is and should be viewed at the same level as 911.
People who work at Colorado Crisis Services are taking hotline calls and sometimes making them too. It's an expansion to the 988 suicide prevention hotline, and the follow-up project in Colorado is a new postvention measure. This is to ensure people in need know the resources available to them. Cole Sullivan explains.
Colorado Crisis Services, this is Kat. May I ask who's calling?
Usually, they answer the phone.
Are you experiencing any suicidal ideations today?
But the folks at Colorado Crisis Services sometimes make the calls too.
People sometimes just need someone to empathize and to hear and to care and to check in, to create that space and to provide additional resources if needed.
Lena Heilman leads the state's Office of Suicide Prevention, which funds the Follow-Up Project, a postvention program where crisis call takers make calls to people who have already shown they need help.
People remain at elevated risk for suicide after experiencing a suicidal crisis or a suicide attempt.
She says data show in the month after someone leaves psychiatric care, they can be up to 300 times more likely to die by suicide. Many other patients never show up for their first therapy appointment.
And so we know that having non-demanding, caring contact check-in helps reduce the likelihood that someone will re-experience suicidal despair or reattempt suicide.
That's where the free Follow-Up Project comes in. Participating hospitals ask patients if they want the check-ins. If they say yes, trained call takers give them a ring about once a week for the highest risk first month.
It's been going really well.
So well, the program's expanding. Now it can connect younger patients to free therapy, which keeps up the help and the hope.
There are so many options and opportunities to survive that despair.
Mental health experts and advocates tell us again and again that the key to preventing suicide is reminding people that there is and will always be hope. If you find yourself struggling with thoughts of suicide, please call or text National Suicide Prevention Hotline. That number is 988. You're just a call or a text away from the resources out there to help you. Thank you for being here with us. I'm Stephanie Haney.